So how do you start a YouTube channel in 2025 without spending a lot of money? You see, I started mine in 2024, but I've been doing photography for like 15 years, so I have tons of gear. But you want to start it in 2025, and maybe you don't want to spend too much money, or maybe you don't want to spend any money at all. So that's where these tips are gonna come in handy, right? Because the first thing is to just use what you have. You see, right now, I'm recording this on my cell phone, right? I got an iPhone 13 from whenever this thing came out, and you can tell, like, it looks decent. I've got it in 4K, 24 frames a second. You know, you can shoot it in 30 frames a second. You can do whatever you want. But you can see what this is doing and how nice this is. But the thing I made sure to have is good audio. So that's gonna be one of the keys, is having good audio. Now, you don't need to spend a ton of money on DJI mics like this. There's some other companies that make cheaper versions. So if you are on a lower budget, and you can get like the Hollyland Lark 2s, which are about $120, $140 roughly. Sometimes they're on sale for cheaper. Great crisp audio. One of my friends actually did a review on these recently, and I'll link that up here. So that way you can check those out and see if they're what you want. But even if you don't have good audio, just create. That's all it comes down to. Just hit record and start getting used to recording, talking in front of the camera, being in front of the camera, because that is going to be one of the biggest things that people are going to notice, is how you present yourself on camera, how you talk to the camera, and just how your personality is. Because once you start getting used to it, you're going to realize that it's a lot easier than you think, just sitting in your backyard, talking, birds chirping, whatever it might be. You see, I do have good audio for this, but what if we didn't have the good audio? And now this is just with the internal mics, and you see the difference that microphones make. But since we're talking about any budget, just use the phone in your pocket. You don't need to spend any money, just use what you have and start recording. The rest will come along when you have the money to do it. But if you do have a little bit of extra money to spend, you could easily, like I said, get microphones and just use your phone and plug them into the bottom, so that way you have that good crisp audio. But there are some other options too if you have a little more of a budget, like this. This is filmed with the DJI Action 4. You can find these from between $200 to $250 on sale, and the audio actually internally is really good. So if you just want to buy a camera but you don't want to buy mics, you can use this. You see, now we're using the internal audio. This camera shoots in 24 frames a second, 60 frames a second, all the way up to 120 frames a second. It's got internal time lapses that it'll make for you, hyper lapses. It also shoots in 10-bit log footage if you ever want to start color grading or anything like that. But there's also normal color profiles you can use for this camera. So if you're anything like me and that's not your area of expertise, you can just use that and just splice your video together using something like CapCut or any other video editing program. You can actually use the DJI app as well and just transfer it to your phone and just do everything from there. And some are going to notice this, but some won't, is that I'm actually not using the 180-degree shutter rule, which states that if you're shooting in 24 frames a second, you're shooting in 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second, whatever frame rate you might be using, it says that your shutter speed should actually be double your frame rate. So if we're in 24 frames a second, you should be at about 48 to 50 frames a second. Or if you're 60, then you need to be at 120 to 125, right? Well, I'm not doing that for this. Why? Because if you're just trying to start your channel and you don't know anything about photography or videography, you're not going to need to know all that. You're not even going to care about a lot of that. You're just going to want to hit the record button and get started. And this whole time I've still been using the internal audio for this. I haven't been using the mic that I have on here right now. I'll take this off. You can see no button on. We'll throw that in my back pocket. But you can see how simple it is just to hit the record button and get your video together. And this is going to cost you like $200, which is very nice. Now, obviously, you can get other mics for it and beef it up a little bit to make it even better, which is a great thing about this camera. I mean, if you want to combine this mic and that's going to run you about $300 to $320, because the nice thing with these mics is that it actually connects to the Action 4 via Bluetooth. So you don't even have to worry about having any wires. You can just have it on you right here and be talking and you're good to go. But you can also use the internal audio because it sounds great. And yeah, we can get into all sorts of things. Oh, well, maybe you need a light for your studio. Maybe you need whatever. Well, at the first videos I did when I first started my YouTube channel, the beginning of 2024, I used the light that was in my work office. I didn't have any lights. I was just using that. And yes, it did not look good, but I was actually at least trying to create, because I knew the more I did it, the better I got at it, that later on those things would come. I would learn better lighting. I would learn all those different techniques, but I just needed to get out there and create things. versus being out there and not creating anything. So now if you want to invest a little more, we're going to talk about the DJI Pocket 3. That's what I'm using right now. And one of my favorite things is just how easy it is to pick this thing up and carry it around. I'll have a full review on this soon. So if you want to stay tuned to the channel and check that out, please do, because I've had it for a while and I enjoy using it. But you see how easy it was just to move it, and it follows me. That is one of the key features. So if you're like new to photography and videography and you're worrying about focus and getting the camera to follow you in and out and all sorts of things, you can buy this. You can tap on the screen twice, it'll auto track, and now no matter where you move, if you're like me and you move around a lot, it's gonna follow you. But this is also at the higher budget end of about $520. That doesn't include tax. But how does this sound? Because this is the internal audio. We can connect this, right? We can connect this DJI mic via Bluetooth to it like we did with the Action 4. That's kind of one of the cool things about having, DJI equipment is these will connect via Bluetooth. But the audio is going to sound basically the same into that as it will to the Action 4. But this is what it sounds like without that. So maybe you want to spend the money on this instead of the money on this setup if you got more of a budget. So maybe you want to start a channel that, you try on different outfits, or maybe you play a musical instrument or whatever it might be, and you need something that is going to follow you around a bit because you move a bit. Or if you're wanting to start a vlog because, a lot of us don't write stuff down, don't keep diaries or anything like that anymore, but maybe you want to start daily vlogging. Well, this is a good one to have because you can easily do that with this, walk around it. Yeah, I understand it's kind of like the Action, but you can see it's keeping me in the center of the frame. So there's a bunch of cool features like that where it's going to keep you in the center of the frame, to the right of the frame, to the left of the frame. The internal audio on these sound very good, which is kind of amazing because even high-end cameras, their internal audio is trash. It just doesn't sound as good. And something like this is going to come in handy because I can go over here and we can continue this conversation. You probably can't hear me and I got to talk louder, but you get where I'm coming from. And two last notes: good audio. Get yourself a little mic and get better audio than you would if you're using your cell phone, because good audio works well. Now, if you're using the Pocket 3 or the Action 4 like we talked about, you're gonna have good internal audio, but it's still not gonna sound as good as an external mic. And when you can spend $100 to get great audio, it's definitely worth it. And number two, just start recording. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about if the audio is perfect. Don't worry about if the visual is perfect. And just start recording, getting those creative juices flowing, and just getting better at it. Because the more you do it, the better you're gonna get at it. And that's the important thing, getting better at it and having fun with it. I have some videos that are approaching 4,000 views, and I have some that barely broke 100 or probably aren't even at 100. So that's one of those things where, yeah, I wish I would do better, but if I compare those initial videos that have 100 views, I can see why they have 100 views versus the ones I have recorded recently that I'm like, wow, that did really well. It's because I've done a better job with it and I've learned over the past year of doing this. But that's all I've got for today, so I appreciate you hanging out with me. I hope this was helpful, and if it was helpful at all, we ask you just to give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button when you get a second, and I'll see y'all in the next one and probably in the new year.